Hello, team. It's me, Natai. I'm going to be doing the ice rescue training. So my goal here is to do the PowerPoint online here, put it up on YouTube so anyone can see it. Hopefully, I'll have enough memory on my computer and all that for it all to work. And then we'll be so that'll be up on YouTube, and everybody can watch it at their kind of own pace or at their own opportunity. And then we'll have our in the water training sessions. So this PowerPoint was built for me doing training for Mono County EMS, the ambulance crews, but it's going to set our purpose, and I'll kind of talk about how we'll work into all of that. So let me get my screen up here going. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope it's gonna be great to get back into doing training. Get my computer to get going here. I got the pinwheel. Okay, so this is surface ice rescue. It's gonna be for Mono County Sheriff Search and Rescue Team, with a kind of emphasis on, mountain rescue and how that's going to fit in and how it would work in Mono County here. Uh, this class is going to talk a lot about the ICS system, incident command system, and kind of our operational overview, how it all should go, recognizing hazards in the ice rescue environment, the type of equipment we're going to use, self-rescue, survival skills, which kind of become the foundation of our comfort and competency in the ice rescue environment. We'll talk about our victim rescues and then some unique situations and circumstances. Again, most of you, I'm sure, all know me at this point. Certainly email me or text me with questions or whatever as needed. Um, then this class kind of covers the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association 1670 standards for technical rescue operations. That's kind of just how they outline how in the fire service and in professional rescue from that side that they want to organize rescuers. And this PowerPoint is going to meet the requirements for awareness level curriculum for surface ice rescue, and we'll be doing our in the water training later on. So, operational overview of what should happen on an ice rescue environment, and understand that the SAR team is kind of like third tier, if you will, in a way. That the chances of us being like first responders on scene or it really should be taken care of by the county EMS system and the fire districts. That should pretty much all be covered. But I mean, we could certainly have stuff in the backcountry, and we need to be familiar with this type of environment and these type of skills. So big thing when we show up is going to be fitting in or implementing the incident command system. And this is how throughout the nation, how emergency teams need to be able to integrate, and it's a kind of streamlined system. It's very modular, so you can use it however you want. But we're going to have a strong emphasis on responder and bystander safety, and then like making sure this event doesn't progress and develop into something worse. We're going to need to access the victims and remove them with swimmers and rope teams, most likely. And the victims are going to need to be assessed, treated, and transported, maybe even with some triage in there. And we want like a pre-staged medical group, ideally. And we're also going to really want to recognize the 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 need for additional resources in different situations. And a lot of that is going to end up, unfortunately, probably with needing a dive team for a recovery operation and switching modes from rescue mode to recovery mode. So here's your kind of basic ICS flow chart that for big operations and stuff, but it's never really going to seem to matter unless you're in those big leadership roles on some big thing. But realistically, with the first response, probably being a medic unit is going to be swimmer one and the incident commander and the rope tender. Um, Probably one person getting in the suit because they only carry one suit, and the other person assuming incident commander and rope tender roles with additional fire personnel on the way. So, and then with more people on scene, we're going to hopefully fulfill those roles like safety role, set up our medical and all that. And so, SAR team would probably be arriving a little later, but we just want familiarity with this basic kind of structure and what's going to go on with these type of incidents. So basic scene size up is going to set the pace for the incident, and that on-scene report is going to set the tone. So we want to assess the number of victims or patients, recognize the need for additional resources, whether that might be watercraft or a dive team, anticipate where this incident is going to go and how it's going to develop, recognize the mass casualty incident that could happen or is happening, and that kind of goes into protocol for declaring an MCI and how we're going to work within that structure, recognizing the rescue versus the recovery, and being able to switch modes. The team used to have a dive team, and right now there's not. The sheriff's department resource is going to be to San Bernardino dive team, and they're a really good crew with big budgets. So as this incident develops, we could be additional incoming units could be used on watercraft. They could be used for additional swimmers, additional rope teams, or even to assist the medical treatment, triage and treatment side, and fill whatever role that we can assist with. So basic NFPA, which is the fire kind of standard, has a good system of outlining kind of control zones and responder training level with control zones, with the cold zone, the warm zone, and the hot zone, and training levels that kind of coincide with that. So the cold zone, and this is a little counterintuitive for ice rescue, but the cold zone is going to be where lay people basically are, people with awareness level training that can assist without being exposed to the danger. And these zones can be kind of loose, or they can be kind of hard, fast, depending on how the scene is managed. But we're going to hopefully be all trained up to the operations level, or what would be to operate in the warm zone or even in the hot zone. So cold zone is basically keeping lay people, bystanders, could be kept further back than that, but even responders who are not trained to assist in the rescue, or don't need to be in the rescue. And that's where your medical treatment and triage and stuff should be. So the warm zone is going to be basically onshore, possibly in a boat, is how NFPA kind of outlines it. But with the appropriate training, that's going to be on the shore, on a boat, in the water, or on the water, and with the appropriate PPE, which is going to be bare minimum of PFD and cold weather gear and good gloves. And then we're also going to have the hot zone, which is going to be our swimmers in the water, trained to a higher level, the technicians level. And they're going to be directly performing rescues, and they'll have the appropriate cold water rescue suits. So ideally, we want to get everybody trained up so they could be, technician level in the hot zone, directly performing rescues. But obviously it takes a village, and we need people to pull the swimmers and the victims in, because you're not going to be able to remove a victim by yourself. There's not enough traction, there's not enough dexterity in the suits, and the energy that would take. And we'll go into more detail into the kind of tactics we'll use. But really we're going to want our cold zone set up where we can keep kind of the people who need to be over there over there. We have our warm zone, which is probably going to be people on shore pulling on ropes with PFDs ideally, and then the hot zone with our people in the water. And obviously this can be counterintuitive with ice rescue. So like awareness level, like I said, that's the cold zone, equipment staging, scene management, medical. Operations level are probably going to be like fire personnel or people on shore with PFDs, cold weather gear, and good gloves because they're going to be pulling on those ropes that are going to be wet. Uh, and they'll operations level also needs to think about kind of managing this corridor of patient transfer of victim removal into medical care. And that can almost be kind of like, like we need to get someone out of the avalanche pit into, medical mode and into, assessment and transportation, or like the decontamination corridor and like a hazmat type situation or something. So there's a lot of responsibility at the operations level, on shore or in a boat, possibly on a watercraft if trained. And then the technician level is our people in the suits in the water, and they're gonna obviously need a cold water rescue suit, with the appropriate um, accessories, which are usually a good quality knife, a whistle, a flashlight is very handy because this could very well be happening at night. And a helmet is often a good accessory. And then our water rescue rope, which our water rescue rope is different than our rope rescue rope for like high angle, low angle type stuff, because our water rescue rope will float, needs to be able to float, as opposed to our rope rescue rope, which will sink and can be extreme hazard in the ice rescue environment. So what we want are good, clear control zones of where we can see, okay, we've got our swimmers in the water at that, technician hot zone level. We have our warm zone where we have our operations level people, and then we have our kind of cold zone keeping people out. You'll see here they're using a ladder on the ice, which is something I'd really discourage, and kind of is becoming more of a less preferable technique. Um, but we don't have PFDs on our warm zone here with our shore-based crews. A lot of the places, if you're on June Lake Beach, do you really need a PFD? But we really need to make sure that we're going to keep people from going into the zone they don't need to be in by going out on the ice. And that's a large reason why we would require someone to have a PFD on operations level, because in the event that they end up wanting to go in, trying to affect a rescue or something, trying to assist by going out onto the ice. So we want clear control zones with our operational levels, and that doesn't mean, um, you know, just because you're trained to the technician level, we don't need people on the shore doing operations kind of stuff and doing a rope tender job. So here we can see two pictures where there's a lack of clear control zones. So on the left, there's a training picture. We have a firefighter out on the ice, no PFD, and pretty clear that if these swimmers are in their rescue suit in the water, then why does this guy need to be here? Some places you have such thick ice that can be used as kind of a warm zone area, but I would always say to just keep warm zone on true like soil, like on true ground, not on the ice. And we can tie ropes together and get into different shuttling techniques and stuff, but we should be always trying to keep our personnel who aren't in suits off the ice. And if we need to operate a hauling team on the ice, they should be in suits too. And that kind of gets into some more complicated stuff. On the right here, we have a picture which looks like an actual rescue. So I guess you got to give these individuals credit. Um, but showing up on this, you're going to have kind of 3 patients at the end of this for cold water exposure. Um, but then how do you come into the situation and manage it, try and get better control zones, better management of the scene, better tactics. And if you show up on this and you have lay people, or people without the equipment trying to effect a rescue, how are you going to integrate and then manage that situation? um Obviously, like, hey, you guys go back, I got this, but they still, maybe have the tendency to want to perform. Chances are, if they're in that cold water, they're probably going to want out as soon as possible. um, but thinking of coming into a situation where things may be getting a little chaotic, and thinking of how can we best integrate. So our core safety net backup plan are having backup swimmers. So as soon as one swimmer is suited up and in the water, we want another person suited up who is, just as well trained to be able to go out, assist, or rescue swimmer one if, worst case scenario. Um, so if we have multiple victims, we can elect to deploy multiple swimmers at once. Um, but we should always work in, like the buddy system, having backup swimmers, having more equipment, whether that be portable watercraft like we have here in the picture here, that we can, lift up and move around. Uh, and being able to intervene and be able to provide backup safety for our swimmers in the water. And you could argue that some people say, oh, you should just keep someone as just intervention for our people. But if they were to go out and actually assist with the rescue, especially with multiple victims, then it could be a lot more efficient. And obviously there's room for SOPs and a lot of experimentation with different ways. But as soon as we have people deployed in the water, we want a backup swimmer tethered and tended, ideally. You can show up and just clip on your rope and drop the bag and hope that the fire department's going to show up, is what I teach the county medics and stuff. But there should be someone there to tether the rope. And we should be working in the buddy system as much as possible. So recognizing hazards in the ice rescue environment is basically going to be similar to like avalanche type stuff. Is recognizing our freeze thaw cycles, uh, recognizing inconsistent ice composition, and that can be with thickness or density. Warm water springs that can affect little openings in the ice, especially early on in the season. Foliage above, below, or on the surface can totally affect not only the development of the ice, but operations with access and whatnot. Deep water, obviously a concern. If you can stand up, not as threatening as if you can submerge into it. But again, we're looking for an understanding of our conductive, radiant, and convective heat transfer. If you really want to get into the whole development of the ice, which some instructors really push. But our biggest hazard is going to be moving water. If we can get sucked under this ice, or we got water that is moving faster than we can kind of walk or swim, that is basically like swift water, and we're in the wrong suit, because ice rescue suits are not maneuverable. They have extreme buoyancy, especially in the feet. So they are really not something you would ever want to be in moving water, swift water. And then we really have to think about our accessibility, especially for us if we get some type of call in the boonies somewhere. But deep snow, visibility during storms, and obviously all the variable conditions that can happen. Um, Here's a good picture of Convict Lake. In the foreground, we have these big kind of dinner plate pieces of ice piling up. And in the background, we can see open water. So these these like dinner plate pieces of ice you could kind of wait out there, but if something were to submerge, the wind can easily blow these all together and cover up the hole quite quickly. And there's places like, I know on the like north shore of Grant Lake that happens quite a bit, where I mean I could even imagine like, so like someone's dog running out on all this ice or something, I don't know, and then having to get into something. But this is going to be, you're probably not going to be able to crawl on top of it. You're going to have to just kind of wade through it, and that's all going to just blow back together. Can be frustrating. In the left hand picture here, we can see open water. It looks like big cracks, maybe even a little open water, or a little water on top of the ice. And obviously, this is all gonna, affect everything. And the big thing is, I mean, this isn't a you can make this some crazy science, but we just need to be aware of our surroundings. Um, Air pockets and bubbles, the density of the ice, and the ice can kind of be like an ice climbing, more brittle or more like plasticky, where it's almost like when you're on top of it, it flexes. And you can have a wide variety. It can be pretty interesting. So other things like I talked about, that ice piling up, the dinner plates, as high winds are going to increase difficulty in communication verbally and with whistles. But cracks and bubbles and all kinds of stuff like that can show us our thickness. But the best way to gauge the thickness is going to be using like an ice climbing screw to kind of drill a hole and measure it that way. Here we can see two different pictures of reeds and just how the ice is formed around them. In this top picture, there's open sections around the reeds, probably from the reeds moving around or soaking up sunlight. But in this lower picture down in the right hand corner, it looks like just solid ice all around the reeds here. So you can kind of have different effect too with foliage just on variable conditions. And then also in this top picture, you can notice the snow, basically the frost on top, in comparison to the smooth ice. So there's a lot of variation, variables that can happen out there. You'll often see these charts in places where they do ice fishing and stuff. I've seen vehicles out on the lakes here in June. Um, but these can be kind of a good reference. But it all depends on the type of ice, right? And how it can kind of depend. But once you get a little bit of thickness, it's pretty amazing what it can support. So our equipment in the ice rescue environment is going to be our primary reliance is going to be on our cold water rescue suit. And there's a couple options we can use. On the left here is our yellow Mustang survival suit. Those are what the county medics just got. They're kind of the new suit in town that everybody's liking. I haven't gotten a chance to try them out, but they seem pretty neat, and just kind of just a different suit. We have the stern suits. Some of ours are getting a little old now, but we've gotten rid of all the really old ones. But the stern suit here in the middle is going to be made of a thick neoprene with built-in boots and gloves. Not much dexterity. It also has a built-in harness which you could use, which is intended so you could use it for like hoist operations, because these suits are often used as survival suits for like fishermen in the Bering Sea and stuff. Um, but these suits are going to be our primary suit that we rely on. We also have the dry suits for swift water, and the conventional dry suit is nice. The ones we have don't have boots, so that's pretty cold on your feet. You can wear wool socks and whatever, but the dry suit certainly is acceptable. But the dry suit is going to need additional flotation with a PFD, or personal flotation device, where the Mustang suit and the stern suit have so much inherent buoyancy that you don't need a additional PFD, and it would actually be quite difficult to try and even swim under the ice because the buoyancy is gonna shoot you out. And this buoyancy can be, while it keeps us safe, it can be difficult to maneuver and swim, and our dexterity and our suit and everything. So there's the kind of three options we got. The biggest thing is depends on maintenance on these suits. I pulled one of our suits out. There was like a dead bat in there, and then there's like one of the suits had gotten into and made a nest with a hole through the whole thing. But I was able to actually patch and sew that up, and Shugu is just a great, fix for the stern suits. But keeping the zippers waxed and trying to maintain the suits, because you don't want to rely on these suits and then find out there's, put your foot in it and there's a nest in the foot or something. So other equipment that we can use is, obviously our water rescue rope, and that's got to be specific water rescue rope, which is polypropylene, often is braided, can also be kern mantle, but this rope floats. And this rope is also very poor for heat and friction, like for like a descent control device, or rope rescue, and that's why we don't use it for that. So we have clear separate water rescue rope and our rope rescue rope. So we can see these cinch collars out there, and different type of collars and whatnot. And then we'll also have our Carlson board, which we use for swift water. It can be great for ice rescue. And then you'll also see training with backboards, and other type of equipment. And then certainly specialized watercraft, like in this upper left-hand picture of these special rescue crafts. Ladders, we should absolutely steer, like we don't have ladders, so but if you show up and the fire department are putting ladders out, hopefully that wouldn't happen in this county, because that's and a big part of that is with the Convict Lake incident, which is something, if you're interested in this, I would certainly recommend looking into. But you had responders with no suits and turnouts, firefighting turnouts, pushing ladders out there, tying rope rescue ropes to the ladders, and it broke through, and people were entangled, and it resulted in some unfortunate loss of some Long Valley, at least one Long Valley firefighter, with you know yeah. So whole thing, interesting history for sure. And a reason that in this county we should be solid on this. And I don't think any of the fire departments would be using ladders, but just for your basic background knowledge, we don't want to use ladders out there. We can certainly still use ladders in the swiftwater environment for bridging techniques, which are mostly for access and almost augmenting rope type techniques, but we don't want to rely on ladders to distribute our weight or anything like that. You'll also see inflated fire hose, sometimes bent back into a loop, but anything that you're using that relies on your victim to grasp stuff after they've been in this cold water is, I think, a little unrealistic. Um, and even in these suits, like, with the gloves, you don't have good dexterity, and it's difficult. So use trying to do these reach techniques or using inflated fire hose, um, it's kind of maybe a little outdated in my opinion. So let's get into our self-rescue survival skills, and the main one is going to be our kick, pull, roll. So as we move across the ice, we want to distribute out our weight by getting on all fours, or even into like a army crawl. But once we fall through, we need to collect ourselves, try and resist the urge to gasp and take in water, inhale water. We're gonna want to control ourselves, right? If you are without a suit, or even in a suit. Um, in the suit, we're gonna check our buoyancy. we want to purge the air from our suit as much as we can before like as we put it on, but it isn't until you're actually in the water that you can really purge your air, because you get a lot of air down in your feet and whatnot, and can affect your buoyancy. But to get out of the ice here, the big thing is to think of, we need to get to solid ice. So we tread water, we can get up on the ice edge. If the ice breaks, we want to find good ice, and this can expel a lot of energy. But we need to be very be very careful, have a lot of finesse when we're trying to get up onto thin ice. But a lot of it is we're just going to have to get to the good ice. So the kick pull roll. So we're going to kick our feet out and kind of become like the Superman picture in the second picture here. I actually kind of like to keep my feet out to the side to kind of get my leg up and roll onto the ice. But we're going to get our feet up so we're more level or more horizontal, closer to the ice, and we want to find that good ice. We're going to come up onto it, try to distribute out our weight as best as possible, by using our arms to grip the ice. If we could utilize it to our advantage, we could allow our arms to freeze to the ice a little bit. Sometimes that can be a good advantage. But really, we're going to want to try and lift up on that ice and then kick our feet up and roll onto the ice and roll away from it. And it's something that just kind of takes a little bit of practice. Now, we can certainly use ice awls or the little spikes, nunchuck things, and those are good, but I think it's important to work on doing this without those first, and to get a good appreciation. In our suits, we have a lot of buoyancy, so you can kind of check that buoyancy and then use it to your advantage as well. But these suits are heavy and there's not much dexterity, and it can be hard to get up onto the ice. Now, with the ice, we may need to break through the ice to get to the good ice. We want to resist the urge to punch the ice, whether punch or hammer fist or elbow or whatever. The best way to break the ice is going to be getting your weight on top of it and letting it crush through. And you can push that ice under, away from yourself, or even in front of yourself, and it can kind of give a little more buoyancy on the ice in front of you or whatever. And breaking through till you find that good ice. It can be very demoralizing to try this and the ice keeps breaking, but you got to remember, you may just have to get to the good ice, or just kind of do that Coast Guard cutter thing, breaking through to shore if the ice isn't going to support you. And now the thing is, in a kind of survival situation, us operating in the backcountry, we're not going to be in these suits or whatever, and it's important to kind of have that awareness of what it would take. But like the layperson without a suit, trying to break your way through a ton of ice is going to be pretty hard. So trying to get to that good quality ice and get out. And then one of the things that is nice is to do it in a controlled environment with the dry suit, which is less buoyancy. So you can practice that technique kind of as a survival skill a little more. But in the rescue situation, this is really important, a good individual skill, but most likely we're going to be relying on the rope team to facilitate that transition over the ice. So kick, pull, roll, certainly an important skill that we'll work on. We can utilize these nunchuck spike tool things, which are nice. You can make them homemade, but it's really nice to have the retracting ones so they don't puncture the suit and stuff. Other movement on the ice, it can be really easy to just walk across the ice and slip and fall and hit your head or hit your tailbone or something. So trying to avoid that, kind of go out on all fours, and you kind of can do a slide kind of thing, almost like skating on skis, which can be kind of nice. But as the ice gets harder, you can distribute out your weight more and more. You can certainly use techniques like in this upper right hand picture of using the ice awls in a Carlson board type device to pull yourself along the ice. I wouldn't recommend this. This is going to be really hard on your upper body. It's going to be tiring. You can get going pretty fast doing this. I mean, it can be kind of fun. But is this really necessary? I would usually just drag the Carlson board out behind me, and I want to have a good feel of that ice, and with my body, I can be a little, I get a feel for the ice a little more, so I know what the edge transition out is going to be like. But we want to avoid point loading the ice, which is concentrating more force in one section, and we want to distribute the force. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you just gotta break that ice and move through, especially if you have a victim or subject that is much lighter than you, and they fell through, so you're gonna have a harder time. Uh, but yeah, again, like in this lower right hand or lower left hand picture, you see a bucket litter that could be really nice, especially to facilitate the removal of this dog here. Um, so in thinking about transporting and getting your victim out, but there's definitely ways to get across the ice. You'll see people teaching these kind of cool techniques, and it's something to experiment with, but I think it's just most important to get a good feel for you know um, using your body on the ice. So victim rescues, we already talked about backup swimmers. Super important, kind of a solid SOP type thing that we need a backup swimmer. And on the fire service, I was fine you know, with attending crew in calm, regular, cool environments that one person could do this. And teaching the medics that, and I've seen them do this and shown up as the backup swimmer right as they're finishing the rescue of like a dog, that they could get this done in a regular standard environment, standard situation with one swimmer, one tender. You got people on the way, and you call them off after they're after it's all over. But having a backup swimmer, I think, is super crucial. Working in the buddy system, um, but also we can utilize multiple rescuers, rather than just having one person standing by, um, not really helping. Um, and that kind of depends on the situation and leaves room for SOPs. So every swimmer should have a water rescue rope tethered and tended. Um, there's not a lot of situations where I don't think a swimmer, or there are going to be so many swimmers that they don't need the ropes. Um, in training, this can end up with a lot of ropes everywhere. But I mean, oftentimes I think the rope, it's good to take the rope off and mess around, or not mess around, but have a good controlled training session, um and understand that you could completely operate without the rope. If there's multiple victims in the water and you need to send multiple swimmers out, and you don't have so many ropes and they're going to get tangled, I think this is something to be weighed and really experimented with, ideally in kind of scenarios and stuff. But ideally, every swimmer should have a water rescue rope tethered and tended. Even if you clip on the rope, drop the bag and let it pay out so someone can pull you along later. If there's multiple victims, multiple swimmers may be deployed simultaneously, but a backup swimmer should be in position as soon as possible, or multiple backup swimmers. The first priority for any number of victims is to prevent submersion. So if we have 3 people in the water, one swimmer going out, it would almost be it would be more preferable to take out some PFDs, try and gather these subjects together, get PFDs on them, get them to huddle together, and then work on removing them one by one. Rather than I get to the first person, we work on doing this removal thing, and the other two or one submerges. So those are all things to think about. But our priority, I think, is to prevent submersion, because um, after they're submerged, it's dive team time, right? And we can't do much after that. Even if they unfortunately go unconscious or whatever, but they're in a PFD, we got something to work with. Um, So conventionally, our use of the talk, reach, throw, row, go, helo, escalation model can be nice. But especially in the ice rescue environment, I think we should opt for, and even the swiftwater rescue environment, we should opt for the most efficient, most effective rescue rather than, trying to say, hey, swim to me or reach out with something, to someone who's been in freezing water. We're probably gonna have to just kind of get in there and get it done. And this can be relatively easy and quite safe as long as we don't have like moving water or any extreme hazard. This is something that you know almost anybody could do comfortably. So single victim rescues, the easiest way to get your victim out is going to be, or one of the simplest ways to get your victim out is just grabbing your victim and having your rope team pull you in. Now, you can risk losing grip of your victim for sure, and this is why it should be trained on quite regularly and a little extensively. But we grab our victim, we signal, we help them up over the ice, whether our victim is facing shore or they're backwards like this, and our rescuer is getting pulled from the back, which I wouldn't recommend, because this can be kind of nice in those situations where it looks like here where you have these big pieces of ice that kind of break and create a ramp, and you can kind of get up onto it. But where you end up having a harder edge or you're breaking through ice until you hit that harder ice, this can be really painful on your back, and you would not want to be injured during this rescue. So I think it's important to work on getting in. We'll approach our victim, kind of flank around from the side, get communication, maybe throw a PFD to them, so they can grab that and swamp that, and we can work on getting that onto them. Or we just go for a regular rescue. Chances are they're going to be, arms up on the ice, just cold, waiting, and we can kind of flank out to the side, roll in, come up behind them, help secure their airway if they're kind of just in the water, get them to the edge of the ice, and get ready to facilitate that edge transition up onto the ice so we can pull across it. And having good communication with the rope team, and the rope team needs to be aware of what's going on, especially that edge transition, and hopefully they got an idea of what the ice is like and how that's going to be on the swimmer. But big thing is the rescue swimmer must not lose control of the victim. So we can get into tethers and stuff, and usually I think it's best to start with regular victim rescues where you're kind of bear hugging, getting these control positions, even practicing like side stroke kind of thing. There's a lot we can work on, but oftentimes we're going to be relying on a lot of uh, our body mechanics to secure the victim. So the standard command to haul is most often used as just patting on the head. Um, we can use our, kind of regular haul signal with whistles. I think they're super important. Oftentimes we can just kind of holler and yell. But in the wind and with other conditions, I think the whistle blast can be really good. A solid whistle blast is used to signal the haul. You shouldn't really be signaling much unless anything crazy is going on. And then if that is the case, we use the three whistle blasts, you know like panic whistle blast, three times. Repeat that, and that means stop, because usually the rope is hung up on something and we need to stop. So three short blasts, stop, something's going wrong, reevaluate. One blast is the haul. And then it can also be good to tug the rope if there's multiple ropes, like tug the rope you want hauled on. But having good, and then you can also incorporate like flashlight techniques, or even radios if you have protected radios. Tethering the victim, I think this is super important. We should think of a kind of two uh two-part system of using your own body to secure the victim and also using a tether, and using a cinch collar or non-cinching collar, these different type of of collars are I think super crucial. And then once you kind of work on your basic rest, you start incorporating that and work on the rigging and kind of figure that out a little bit. But we can tether just by using the rope as well. But you see on the top picture here, swimmer crawling out, collar around their shoulder. They're going to grab the arm of the victim, transfer that collar out and onto them. They could maybe even signal a haul without even putting the rescue swimmer in the water. It's going to be a little bit of a haul over the ice there. And then on the bottom picture here, we have a pretty good setup of a cinch collar. Uh, Again, I don't like as a rescuer getting pulled from the rear of my suit. Um, but protecting the head of your victim as they're getting pulled across the ice, super important. And you can even pull your victim on top of you, because sliding across that ice is not going to be nice. And then we can also use different like the Carlson boards and bucket litters or watercraft or whatever. um, so the Carlson board, the river board, pretty cool piece of equipment. In the ice rescue environment, they're kind of nice. They're hard to submerge to like get under your victim, like at the edge, but they can be great for shuttling people across the ice. And a lot of these you kind of just gotta experiment and mess with, but avoid using any technique that would rely on your victim to hold on to like the Carlson board handles. You got to hold them on there or tether them or something. Um, so multiple victims, we talked about this a little bit. Prevent submersion, the highest priority, right? Call the world and keep people from going under. Deploy every swimmer you got, grab onto people, huddle people together, prevent submersion, and then it's going to be this shuttling out type of thing, and maybe we can kind of get two shuttles going. And there's really cool advanced techniques you can do with retrievable shuttle systems and placing ice screws in the ice and all kinds of cool stuff. But it's important we just get down kind of on the basics. But take PFDs with you to give to the victims. And I mean, this would go against a lot of doctrine, but like you got people standing on shore with PFDs versus people who might submerge. Like they can be an incredible tool out there, for combative swimmers or that type of situation where it's going to take a little while to get everybody out. And then if that's the case, the transfer into triage and MCI protocols, and managing the care and transportation and all that after that. Imagine doing this rescue and then like going into a code, and then you gotta like you know it, there could be a whole lot going on. So it's important that hopefully this will go smooth Lee, and then we'll be uh, proactive and anticipating the next move, especially on the kind of higher up ICS level. Unique circumstances and situations. Obviously, people submerged, we're going to need a dive team. Vehicles in the water, they're probably going to submerge, but if they're partially submerged and, we need to effect a rescue in the ice environment, something to kind of think about. And a lot of that, you know, um, we can do more swift when we do swift water training. We talk more about vehicles in the water and stuff. But you know, don't be anticipate that whatever could happen. You have a plane crash on the ice or some crazy thing. And this upper right hand picture looks like a dog went in. This this person went out to get them with the kayak. The swimmer's gone out. Maybe they tethered the end of the kayak. And you're like, okay, well, what are you going to do first? Are you going to get the dog out? Are you going to remove the person? I'd get the dog. The guy's in a kayak doing pretty good. But then you can anticipate what's going to happen. I don't know, crawling out there with a PFD to give this subject in the kayak the PFD while you remove the dog. um, and that's kind of getting into the decision making, that that can that you could be faced with, theoretically out there. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but yeah, I would probably remove the dog, and then ideally go out there with a PFD, give that to the person in the kayak, and then work on getting the dog out, and then work on getting this person in the kayak out. Snowmobiles, uh, obviously all the things that can kind of happen with that, and just think about all the possibilities of where people are out on the ice. I mean, usually this people are pretty scared of going on thin ice, so um, but people will do strange things, and then yeah, I mean, I just imagine, like, what if we had a plane crash back on the ice in some lake, and you know, may, like maybe we had to figure out like what's up there, and the cargo, and stuff, Um, but the big thing we want to look out for when we're in these suits and we're in the ice rescue environment is moving water, and this can happen around an inlet or outlet of lakes or streams. There's certainly places where this can happen, and it wouldn't take much, especially if we're having a hard time, swimming, or the circumstances where we aren't in a suit, or we don't have the proper flotation. um, that's the big watch out red flag is moving water. And if the water's moving faster than you like can casually walk, it's swift water. Animals in the water, there's kind of a fair amount to be said about this, of just kind of decision making, of even in that last one of the last slides, of taking the dog before the gentleman in the kayak. But really, we're going to do our best to help owners recover their their animals. um and we could get all creative in doing this type of stuff, but I think it's important to think of, yeah, this is a safe enough rescue where, like, yeah, we should be able to go help animals and stuff, and we shouldn't be like, oh, that's too risky, we're not going to do it for a human life, for non-human, or something like that. But just anticipating how ice rescue can blend with kind of other, technical rescue disciplines, like large animal rescue, or whatnot. But the biggest thing I think to remember is that the victims don't have these nice suits, and when we're in the backcountry, we're not wearing them either. So all stuff to think about. But yeah, to think about the physiology and the experience, the emotions of being in that situation, clinging to that ice. Um, it's it's something to keep in perspective. That's all I got for everybody. Hopefully that sparked some thought, and kind of cleared some things up, and maybe you guys got some questions now. Feel free to email me, or text me, or whatever. And I hope to see you guys out training. Okay.